Well, I'm back. And I'm excited I'm back. It was a month off, but it's because of just how crazy my schedule has been. Again, I'm the host of the show, Neil Haley. Got to go to my website, totaltutor.net. And also, you can follow me on Facebook, Neil S. Haley. You can friend me there, or Twitter, Total Tutor. And again, for our international audience, you could just check all that information out. But it's really exciting what's happened with the Total Education Network, and I'm always excited to do TV, but it seems like it's been so long ago. I was talking to my executive producer, Dave Cable, and I said, Dave, I want to do more shows, and then just things didn't happen. But luckily enough, someone else stepped in after our great co-host has moved on to WQED. So I'm really excited to talk about today our topic, autism, especially advocacy. And I'm just fired up after some of the meetings I've been in lately. They just have not been as productive as I want. The school districts, because of lack of funding, have decided to kind of close the door on families, fight families, and not really help them. And parents, you still have all the rights. And our guest today will help us in that process. So I want to welcome to the program Jen Forsythe. You are the Director of Fundraising at the Autism Center of Pittsburgh. Jen, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
I'm excited to talk to you, and I think that you have to kind of tell your story first, how you got involved in this as a parent with a child with autism, so that families understand out there that guess what? It's not a bed of roses when you get a child with an IEP when dealing with school districts, is it?
No, and actually we've been through 2 school districts, and I am not sure if I'm, the first school district, I don't really kind of want to say the names just so, we're going to leave that up there just so we don't have any problems. But the first school district, my child was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome in kindergarten. And at that point, it was just a very big struggle. He would not sit in his seat. He disrupted the class. He would have outbursts. He would run. And he was also getting bullied. This was a kindergarten child that was getting picked on and hit in the playground. And they would call home every day, well, he's doing this and he's doing this. And I was like, okay, well, why don't we get an IEP together? Why don't we get a 504? Why don't we get a plan of action? No, we can't do that. Okay, well, he has autism, isn't it? And my first initial reaction as a parent was, okay, well, isn't he entitled to an IEP? And that's not necessarily so. What the school district at that time told us was, since he didn't meet their standards for an IEP, they didn't have to give him one. And it got to the point by the end of that school year, we were tired of fighting with them, and we actually changed school districts. And the thing was, it was wonderful at first because we went to a school district that was willing to work with us. They had a wonderful staff, wonderful teachers, and we got our IEP, we got our behavioral plan. Everything was going great. And then we decided, since our son was still having some major problems with anxiety, with bolting and everything else, that we would get a service dog. And immediately within bringing the service dog home, after going through all the training, it took almost a year of training. I don't want to give the impression that, they just throw a puppy at your door and run away. His meltdowns stopped. He used to have 2 and 3 hour meltdowns. They stopped. He hasn't had one in almost 2 years because this dog came home. He doesn't bolt anymore. He's tethered to the dog by leash around his waist. And whenever he's anxious or anything like that, the dog licks him or just rubs up against him, and that sensory touch calms him immediately. But then we had to fight the school for a year to get the dog in, and even though it was straight Americans with Disabilities Act, it was still another fight. We had to pull in the local media, the whole bit, and it took us getting an attorney and putting it in writing and her threatening them so that the dog was finally allowed in. And we still have issues now. We want to get adaptive technology. He really has troubles with handwriting. He has troubles with anxiety. Oh, no, he's fine. We don't see any problems.
See, and the situation I see, and this is no knock, is that they're lacking money. They're lacking resources.
Absolutely.
We are in a very, very tough economic time when it comes to public education and education in general, that we're cutting funding just because we think that that's where we're going to cut the budget first. And that's one thing where I hope that some politicians will come on my show and talk to me about why they want to cut education funding and why they think having larger class sizes is a good idea. But which is not. It's not at all. and what you dealt with, especially with the first district, these aren't very nice people, are they?
No, and they seem nice at first when you go into the meetings, but I mean, if you start telling them, hey, I know my rights, I mean, there are a lot of parents that will take the no at face value. Okay, they can't do it, we'll try to find something else. Never, as a parent, take no for an answer.
Right.
Your child has rights. Anything within reason, as far as, maybe some classroom accommodations, maybe some pull-out time if your child has sensory issues and the class is too overwhelming, or maybe a special area to take tests or anything like that. Those are all reasonable accommodations, and you have the right to ask for them. So when a school tells you no, you can basically say, yes, you can, by, the laws that are in place with the Americans with Disabilities Act, by IDEA, by FAPE, which is free and appropriate education. No. Every child is entitled to a free and appropriate education. But the problem is, like you just said, once you know you have the rights and you mention it up, some of those really nice school district officials tend not to be so nice.
They're not nice, and they don't understand that the parent is the one that should call the shots.
Absolutely.
It's based on the American with Disabilities Act, they have the ability, and they should have a free and appropriate education that you choose. Because, and what's happening is, they say absolutely not. No, we're the experts.
Yes.
And they will treat you like a fool in so many aspects that you've dealt with in both districts. So tell parents like some of the tactics that they will pull, and then I want to go into specifically what the differences of different advocates out there in the Pittsburgh area and nationally will do to help you through a process like this. You had to do a lot of fighting on your own first, which was probably very stressful for you.
It was very stressful, and when we initially brought the idea of the service dog up to the school district, no kidding, we had a 4-hour IEP meeting where we were yelled at by district officials, we were screamed at, we were bullied. They quoted my Facebook pages. They showed videos on my YouTube page. Oh, okay, well, in this video, the dog isn't paying attention. Well, they didn't say, well, in that video, my child was frustrated and the dog is trained when he is that agitated not to do anything, to sit still. And that's how she signals, even before we realize he's agitated, hey, there's a problem, you need to come help. Right. But they tried to turn it around as, oh, the dog's not listening, the dog can't be in school. But 4 hours, we got yelled at, we got bullied at. The principal told us, well, we're highly educated people here with master's degrees, so we know best. My husband and I both have master's degrees. So that thing wasn't going to fly. And then we also had the principal get so angry that said if the dog was allowed in school, he would find a way to have the dog kicked out.
So the thing is, the most affluent school districts will do this. Lots of school districts will do this. And you think that we're paying their salaries.
Yes.
We're the ones paying the taxes, that they deserve to be a service. It's a service. Public schools are a service. Right. It's not for the community. It's not for them to think that they're the biggest and baddest people in the world. So that's the frustration that families have. And this is one thing that I tell you is I'm not going to go in there and buddy up with a school district. I'm going to go head to head, and I will go in their faces. Because the bottom line is this. You cannot allow them to dictate your child's IEP. Honestly, any child, even without special needs, it's your right as the parent to choose what you think is best for your child. A lot of times, districts will cut costs, will figure out any way possible, and their fight's just for an IEP or even to get an IEP or get a 504. I had a child with autism I was working with, flat out, guess what they said? No IEP. School test scores are good, just kind of like the first district you dealt with before.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Sean tested in the 90th percentile in all of their standardized tests, and that was their basis for not giving him an IEP. Not that they were calling me every day and saying, we can't control this child, do something. And at that point, you have to answer back, well, what do you want me to do if you're not willing to work with me? And you have the right as a parent to go in there, and you have a right to observe. If they're telling you, if you're seeing problems at home and they're telling you everything is fine, you have the right to go in there and observe your child's classroom. Not many parents know that, but you do. You have the right to go in there and watch your child, and see what's going on. They can't keep you from the building. It is a public entity still. I mean, yes, there are security guards, there are security measures in place, but you have the right to go in there for your child. And like I said, with reasonable accommodations, that may make your child learn better. Yes, this is a child with autism, but he's very high functioning, he's very intelligent, and he deserves the same education as every other child in that school.
Here's the question, and this is, again, a Q&A in a way, and I think that you and I need to go out and do talks a lot of places, but districts flat out say this: if it doesn't meet the state criteria, I'd like to take that state official and say, if you have a child with autism and you don't see that the behavior is exhibited in school, but the parents deal with it all night just because they kept them in order all day, that it shouldn't count unless it's at the district. Those people that have made those decisions, it's not right. Because guess what? The social well-being of that child when they get home and what they go through and the stress every day that they might be hiding, why do they do this? Do they have the right, if you have a child with autism, to deny them an IEP or 504? Do they have the right to do that? Is there a criteria from your research that you've seen? If not, I've been told by districts that the district has the right to say no.
They think they have the right to say no, but then you have the right to take them to due process and hire a lawyer and get that IEP. So no, if you feel your child needs it, and what you're describing, the situation you're just describing, is what our son went through. It's called internalizing. And and this is what happened when we tried to ask for a special bus for him, and when we relayed the stories of how he would come home and just explode in tantrums and anger.
Exactly.
And all of these things. He would take everything that was going on during the day, the loud noises, the anxiety from the test, at that point he wasn't able to verbalize he needed help on an assignment. And he would internalize that and hold it in all day.
Yeah, and then take it out at home.
Exactly. And when 4 o'clock rolled around, we had a time bomb on our hands. And the district would tell us, okay, well, anything he does outside of school is not our problem. Actually, it is, because the cause of the problem, the root of the problem, is in the school building. So it absolutely is their problem.
When we get back, I just want to kind of look at specifically, this is what makes me mad as an advocate. And this is something I'm so passionate about. If I could be at meetings all day long, taking care of districts that are choosing to not think of these. They look at the state criteria. If people listening, if they want to go ahead and tweet me right now, or they want to Facebook me, whatever they need to do watching right now, and tell me who is the person making all these decisions in the state and telling these districts to fight us on these things. If you have a child with autism that's holding it in all day, they come back home and then they take it out, and then they say, well, it's a home problem, not a school problem. Well, I have an issue with that. And I think that we have to look at autism in general in a different avenue and get school districts better trained and to have more empathy for these children and their families and what they have to go through every day. So when we get back, I want to go a little bit more into that. There's a lot more to talk about, different ways you can be the best advocate for your son or daughter that has autism and who can help you. We'll be back in just a moment.
Savings Man here with a story for you about two young spenders named Tommy and Sue. Their parents let them buy whatever they chose, like video games and designer clothes. As they grew older, they spent all their pay on fancy cars, houses, 2 lattes a day. They lived in the moment, never saving a dime. When they tried to retire, they'd run out of time. Working forever is Tom and Sue's fate, so choose to save now before it's too late. Visit our website to find out more, cause a happy ending's worth saving for.
Here comes the monster. The Tickle Monster.
Just imagine what a little time can do for your family.
This is not a race. On the road to financial independence, the winners are the ones who stay the course. Learn more about securing your financial future and choose to save. It will pay off in the long run.
We're back, and if you've watched my television show, since it's been in the studio, I haven't been that passionate. I've been in a little bit, but when you're talking about something like autism advocacy, it's something that's why I decided to become an educational advocate. I'm a trained teacher and own a tutoring and consulting company, but I'm different than a lot of educational advocates. A lot of educational advocates are like my guest, Jen Forsythe, because Jen has firsthand saw this. But you also got to say, it's better to have an advocate in your hand as well, because here's the reason. A lot of times when you as the parent choose that you're the expert in advocacy, the problem is you have to do all this research. An advocate knows exactly what they need to do if they're doing the right thing.
They do. And I mean, as well-versed as my husband and I have become in these laws, it's always better because you're the person in that situation. You have the emotion behind it. And even your knowledge of the law may not come out as clearly as it would be because this is your child. This is your baby. You want what's best for your baby. You're not an advocate in this position. You are the parent. So at this point, from this point on, I don't think in the past year we have ever gone to an IEP meeting without an advocate. And it's one of the most valuable tools that you can have, because if you really do have some issues or your child needs some kind of accommodation and you feel that your school district may not provide it or there may be some questions, it's always best to have that advocate in there to help you and to quote that law, and that they won't have that kind of emotion. They may know your child, they may like your child, but they have that separation there, and they're there for the rights of that child more than anything.
One thing districts want to do is get you so upset as a parent you want to leave. Mm-hmm. They want you to get fired up and start an argument so that basically no facts end up taking place in the meeting. So one thing I do as an advocate is I have worked with Jen, that I have them take notes while I ask questions, and I put them on the defensive. And what happens is a lot of times the truth comes out. And then when they know that we've gotten the truth, then it sets us free in a lot of ways. And then they're like, okay, sure, we're willing to compromise. Mm-hmm. A lot of times parents don't really get the answers from the school. So that's the situation. So I guess we've gone into what you've gone through, and we're fired up about specifically these things in law, and that's a great Q&A for another time with bringing some more experts on the show later on, as now you have kind of put your hat in to be a co-host at times, so I'm excited. And you're a neighbor of mine now, which is kind of funny. Before you were a little bit further down the street. Now you're very close to me, so you know what's going on with me and seeing my yard and everything. So there you go. Now she's definitely a neighbor. And as you know, my neighbors end up staying with me a long time, as Jason, the public school guy, was my neighbor at the Schaeffer Highlands when we were both going through college, and he's my radio guy on Sundays. So you might be here a long time to come in the studio and doing some radio. So Jen, let's go with the different educational advocacies. We've touched upon a little bit, but I want to go into the whole fact about advocating yourself for a service dog, because this is something different where a lot of districts would look at you with two heads saying, you don't need this. This is a home thing, not a school thing. So what types of advocate are you looking for to make sure that you can have a service dog in the classroom?
The main thing that you want to look at as far as having an advocate for a service dog is knowledge of Section 2 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That covers all service animals. And right now the law states you can have a service dog like we have our dog, or you can actually have a miniature pony. I don't think there's any school districts in Pennsylvania that have miniature ponies. I've seen them. They're very cute though. But the laws were updated in March of 2011. Those are the only two animals that are allowed to be service dogs. The service dog, there is also criteria in there that the animal helps with conditions directly related to the disability, that the dog is potty trained, that the dog is not a distraction, that dog is allowed in any public entity, and actually a school is a public entity. Basically, the only places that you really have to watch are private entities. Do not think you can take your dog into church just right in, because actually the church does have the decision on whether or not to allow the service dog. Our church is wonderful. They have made the dog part of the ministry.
That's
you know, when she goes every Sunday with our son, it's absolutely wonderful. But churches are actually considered private entities, so you need to check with your pastor or your priest before taking the service dog in. And the other place is private homes. A homeowner does have the right to deny a service dog. But those are basically the only two places. School is considered a public entity.
Right.
And that dog, as long as it is housebroken, and as long as it is not a distraction to other children, and it serves the actual disability that the child or the adult has, that dog is allowed into school. So you're going to look for an advocate that has full, thorough knowledge of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
And a lot of times, if they have experience with service dogs, that's the type of advocate you want in there, or a lot of times?
If they have experience with service dogs, that's all the better. It's still, as far as having service dogs for children with autism, it's still a relatively new thing. We do have several in the area. We did a fundraiser with some of these children last year and found at least 36 children that had them. So it's still a relatively new thing. But if you want the dog into school like we did, as far as to calm our son's anxiety and as far as the bolting issue and everything like that, yeah, it helps if they know about service dogs, but it's still a relatively new phenomenon, so ADA is still the most important thing.
So would you say it's more of the advocacy of understanding what the rights are of a parent through the procedural safeguards and all the different things and the American Disabilities Act? That's what you need to look at, right?
Right, absolutely. That law is going to be your best friend, and there are several checkpoints, and if you have a good enough lawyer or a good enough advocate that is well-versed in that law, and many of them are becoming well-versed in that law because there are more children across the country. There have been service dog cases in Texas, in Virginia, in Florida, in Oregon, in Ohio, many other states. And every last one of these school districts is starting to lose or to back off because the law federally is so clear. Any local law, any state law, any school district rule. There is actually a school district in this area that says that you're not even allowed to bring a service dog for an assembly.
And how do they get away with this?
Because nobody's tested them on it. Federal law trumps all of those. And that's what you have to remember.
So the situation, what if they, let's say we talked about that district, we're not going to say that name, but that, again, you get on our bad side, you never know. But I will. Jen, I don't know, Jen, again, is an entity with the Autism Center in Pittsburgh. Myself, go ahead. Go after me. I have the right, it's my rights as a journalist to bring out those different things and to be fighting for parents. Now, Jen, a different story.
Absolutely.
In certain ways, she's probably like, okay. So let's just say they say no. What's our next step?
Your next step is to possibly bring an advocate in like you or somebody else who really knows those laws. Are willing to request those things and then say, we're going to go do process, we're going to get a lawyer if it continues. Absolutely. And you can either go to due process at that point, or you can get an attorney, and you can file by yourself with the federal courthouse in downtown Pittsburgh. You would go to the federal building. I believe it's a $350 fee. And you can file yourself. I mean, it's better to have a lawyer and it's better to have somebody on your side with knowledge of these laws. But this is something a parent can even do themselves. As far as bringing due process or even bringing a federal lawsuit against.
Amazing what happens in these situations, and it makes me say we got to be able to do this. We got to be able to fight. So I'm kind of taking my expertise last for you for questions, and then we're going to go into some of the events that are coming up for the Autism Center in Pittsburgh, and also last but not least, go to Q&A with Jen and kind of go after questions I would have that I haven't learned yet. I'm pretty much undefeated as an advocate, but I would love to see situations where certain things have taken place, and we can kind of share those in the last segment if we do have time. So Jen, let's go with specifically another types of advocacy, not just the educational advocate, but other issues. A lot of times the relationship with wraparound services, and you can kind of define wraparound services for areas not in the Pittsburgh area, and the school district. A lot of times the school district wants to distance themselves completely to wraparound.
And we've had that experience as well. When we changed school districts and we went to our new school district, I had mentioned that the Wraparound agency, and this is a wonderful system that is set up in Pennsylvania, I'm not sure how many other states have it, where they have counselors come to you and come to your home and come out in the community and work with your child. They are called, there's a BSC, which is a behavioral service coordinator that is in charge of developing your entire treatment plan. And then you also have something that's called a TSS that comes in, helps your child a certain number of hours a week. They can come into your home. They can go to soccer practice. They can go to the movies, wherever they want. And they can teach your child how to deal with things in each real life situation. Right. So they're very valuable. When we got to our new school district, they said, we have a wonderful staff of full-time paraprofessionals. We have counselors on duty. Your TSS will never need to come in here. And for a while, it was fine. And we were absolutely fine. But after 2 years of, we're seeing this problem at home, we're seeing this problem at home, and the special education teacher coming back with, we don't see anything. He's a perfect angel.
And guess what? Sometimes districts don't tell the truth.
But then out of the blue, we'll hear, okay, well, he's having a problem with this or he did this. We requested that another aspect of wraparound care called mobile therapy, where they actually come to the house and they'll do basically a therapy session with your child, or they'll help your child similar to what a TSS does. We actually just did this last month. We reopened the IEP and you can reopen your IEP at any time in writing. Anytime during the school year, you can do that. We reopened it to request mobile therapy, and the school's like, oh, he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. We don't need anyone coming in. But we thought it was valuable because we're seeing things at home, and nobody's telling us what's going on at school.
Exactly.
So we reopened the IEP. We had an advocate with us. And they resisted for a little bit, but that advocate kept persisting, kind of the thing of, they're helping at home, they're helping with you, this could help form the bonds of communication. They put it in a much nicer way than we probably would have put it, my husband and I. And because of that advocate, we ended up getting mobile therapy in the school. So we now know that my child wasn't eating his lunch. Nobody had told us that all year. He was throwing his lunch in the garbage can and not eating. And considering he can't even break 60 pounds at 9 years old, that's a concern. Or that he was having trouble in the hallway or anything like that. It was such a valuable tool, and without an advocate, I don't think we would have gotten it.
And the key thing is it's another person to talk to. It's another person to talk to the district in a more a civilized manner. And I'll use the word civilized because a lot of times they will try to push buttons and they will try to get people upset. But if you take on, you're in the middle of this and you're looking what's best for your family, that's the most key component. And I think that's what you're figuring out. And now more and more, the more you're getting involved now with fundraising with the Autism Center and all these things, it works out. So that's the interesting thing about Wraparound. One of the things, what about rules? What have you seen in laws? And that'll be for a Q&A. But ultimately, a lot of times they'll say, oh, they only can come in once a month or every quarter. It's like they don't want to work with them. And they believe the school's the only thing. And that's something we need to have a news point built in going on right now. If it doesn't happen in the school, it never happens. So we look at Connecticut. We look at these other issues. Were there red flags that were going on in home? Absolutely. Were there red flags at school? Yes, that were hidden and were lied to because they didn't want to admit it so that they didn't have to get extra services, so they didn't have to pay for those services. And a lot of times I think, well, wouldn't a school district want a special needs child? Wouldn't they want that extra money for the IEP? And that's not the case at all. They don't want that for those numbers because of No Child Left Behind.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of personal pride. They want to be able to fix your child all by themselves. They want to be able to say, we took this child that was turning over furniture and trying to run out of the building, and we made him this perfect child. I think it's definitely a pride thing for them as well. We fixed him. And if you say, well, 2 years later, okay, well, we're noticing this, this, and this, and this. And I noticed this when we went through the service dog and when we've reopened the IEP, they take it very personally. Like you're telling them that they're not doing their job.
We know this firsthand when I worked with you the one time. Okay, when we get back, where they try to get in my face, if he would have saw me stand up, I don't think he would have done that. When we get back, more Jen Forsythe, and we're going to kind of go into delving into more advocacies of what we deal with autism. One was Wraparound. Now the one that we're going to talk about is some of the therapeutic stuff that, again, they're going to fight. And these are things that, guess what? You go to my website and you go ahead and tweet me out. You'll be able to figure that out. So when we get back, more with Jen Forsythe.
Kenny, jàngal ma sa table de multiplication ma dégg.
3 fois 1, 3. 3 fois 2, 6. 3 fois 5, 15.
Bu jëkk Mariama ndax mën nga ñoo wax ñaari
And now another adventure with Savings Man. Oh dear, I can't afford that.
Charge it. You can pay it off later.
Not so fast, credit card guy.
Savings man.
Don't let him entice you, ma'am. Credit card guy can lead you to big trouble. You need a savings plan.
You're right, savings man.
Get this ballpark estimate worksheet at choosetosave.org. It will help you get started.
Gee, thanks, savings man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org and get your ballpark estimate today.
What do we have here?
You take Medicare, don't you?
Sure.
And you probably have a lot of patients who are ready to go on Medicare, yes?
Yes.
You know, you could tell them that if they're 65, they can go to socialsecurity.gov and apply for Medicare online. It takes less time than sitting in a doctor's office. It's less than 10 minutes. It's quite easy.
Well, I'm happy to be back on TV again. Really, Dave, we have to set this up. Is this going to be more than once a month? We'll have to see once we get the interest in the Pittsburgh area, especially when I told them we're going to do more hard-hitting topics. Parenting was great, but now we're going into some controversy where I'm sure people watching are saying, well, this is the Neil we know. This is the Neil that we listen to every day, especially if you want to listen to me on the radio. Thursdays at 3 o'clock on 1080 AM WWNL. I'll have a half-hour show. I interview celebrities and also have education tips. And then Friday at 4:30 on 88.3 FM in Pittsburgh, and it streams live at WRCT.org, will be the Total Education Hour, which we really go after things, and we really have some controversy. So you got to tune in. I have 7.5, 8 hours of programming. Total Tutor, Twitter, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. We were with Jen Forsythe from the Autism Center of Pittsburgh, and we're kind of really delving into all the types of advocacy. And I have so many questions for the last segment, because I could imagine if I had a child with special needs and the district was telling me to pretty much walk away. I'm not doing that. And families out there, you have the right to say absolutely not. They'll just hand you the procedural safeguards at the beginning and say, remember your rights. But then, when the meeting starts, you're a fool. But there are some good districts. But the thing is, you wouldn't think of which districts are very good unless you have people in place, an advocate, the threatening of a lawyer, or due process. Then they love you. They'll treat you like gold. But if they don't think you know anything, they're just going to pass you on through. So let's go now to another thing with autism, which is a lot of the other therapy that, like you said, oh, he's fine. We don't have to worry about that at all. Forget about it. He's a perfect angel. But you're utilizing a lot of this therapy at home to keep him under control. It keeps him calm. That's another thing you have to fight, right? A lot of the different therapeutic strategies, not just a service dog, and advocacy.
Absolutely. And we've had these issues, like as we mentioned in the last segment about mobile therapy. That was something that was recently presented to us maybe about 3 months ago, and we never knew it was an option. My child is getting to the point where he is actually starting to get better and learning how to cope and verbalize, but he still needs that emotional support. So they have cut down some of the TSS and BSS hours, not because of budgeting, but because he's actually getting better, which is wonderful, but he still needs that extra help, and that's where mobile therapy was suggested. And yes, getting into the school, like you said, it ended up having to be put into his IEP. And reopen the IEP on request has to be reopened, and the mobile therapist had to come in, and our case manager and our advocate had to come in and explain to them this is probably a very good thing. We had to show them how they would benefit from it, and that's ultimately, I think, what got it in. And in addition to the knowing our rights, you kind of also have to show how it'll benefit them. Look, if we know this problem's going on, you tell this person maybe we can all work together, kind of thing. The school, this mobile therapy is going to bridge the gap between the school and home, harmony, the whole bit. Right. And that argument ended up winning, and after a little bit of fighting and them taking it personally, like we mentioned it before. But also, we're going to be looking, as he gets older, occupational therapy that was threatened to be cut at the beginning of the year. You can't read the child's handwriting, and he's in 3rd grade. So we ended up getting that reinstated and actually getting it increased so that he could have that in the school. But even with that, we're going to have to get an adaptive technology evaluation. They still want him to write everything out. He gets very frustrated, and when he gets frustrated, you can't read the handwriting anyway. So we feel as he gets into these higher grades and more of that written work is required, to use an iPad or a computer.
Me, you're going to need someone that's going to absolutely want to battle and have a knockout, drag-out fight once he moves to the next level.
Yes.
I know that for a fact because but I have dealt with that district in an even higher level, meaning grade level. The fact is, till they know that you're not going to play, and that's it, you're going to see. But a lot of times they think they're the expert. Oh, yeah, you know what? He doesn't need this. Why are we going to use assistive technology? His grades are fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but isn't there an asterisk on that report card? It's like they don't want, what they want, and this is where we go into the education portion of this. What they want is the child to be happy, but they're not looking at their future. A lot of kids, they're not looking at the future. They're looking at teaching to a test. They're looking at, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves and biggest battles right now, is all education is becoming is teaching to a test. One test all year, nothing else matters. We're not looking at their college career. We're not looking at the adulthood. We're looking at a test, and that special needs kids are falling through the cracks because of it.
And you also mentioned a good point as far as teaching to a test. Many children, and especially children with special needs, they don't learn the standard way. If you sit there and you talk at my child, he's going to be off in space somewhere. He's going to be thinking about Legos. He's going to be thinking about Minecraft on the computer or something like that. But if you
can't do paper pencil stuff like they're doing.
Yeah. And then I'll get a call with a please redo on his math test and they're like, oh, he wasn't paying attention. Well, maybe if you would put it on an iPad or a computer. We actually started putting his spelling words on a wonderful app. It's called A+ Spelling, where I can put the words in, record the words in, and recite them, and he can just type them in. Ever since we started using that app, his spelling grades have gone up. He doesn't fight us anymore for spelling, anything like that. Now, I can do that at home, and it was nothing for me to do. It was extremely easy. Why not translate that into the school so he does even better?
What's too bad is we want a cookie cutter type of situation with all kids. Instead of creating an individualized plan, that's what an IEP is for. It has to be an individualized plan for each individual student. It needs to be different. Each child learns differently. And I wish that we could take every child that is in school and we go that way. Maybe we need to look at the Socratic method and different ways of Greeks, how they taught in education, and the Romans, and say, well, you know what, way we've created this factory type system where everyone's taught the same way doesn't work. And districts will always say, but we really do differentiate. Till you have to prepare for the standardized test, which right now, if you're watching this show, you know all they're doing is PSSA preparation. They're not doing anything else. And I was told that flat out when I was in a meeting a couple days ago. So that's where we're at. That's where we're dealing. And then, so we talked about therapy. Last is the education portion. And honestly, if they think that they're happy and adjusted and have good grades, nothing else matters. We're not looking at what they're going to be in middle school. We're not looking at where they're going to be in high school. All we're caring about is today, not tomorrow, not the future. Why?
I think you bring up a really good point, Neil. I think it's basically what they're trying to do is to pacify your child.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we came up with last year is the reason he doesn't have the outburst at school is because they appease him and give him everything he wants. If they can just give him, it's kind of like, okay, what can we do to keep this kid quiet?
Exactly.
What can we do,
Most definitely.
Just to keep him out of the way? And I think, honestly, that's the way a lot of these schools are looking at these children. If they can just, shut them up from 9 to 3,
right.
And get through the day without having to handle them, then everything's good, the kid's good, it's all hunky-dory.
Well, OCC, but that's the reason that's happening with not just special needs kids, it's happening with everyone.
Yes.
And it's because a teacher in an affluent school, if their kids do mostly well on the PSSA, they don't have any gripes. All that matters is you did well on the test.
Right.
That's all that matters. I remember when I was teaching. Oh, test scores. That's all that mattered. All year, if you maybe taught kids to increase their reading levels, doesn't matter. It's that one day, that 1 week of standardized tests, which is one of my least favorite times in the world. And that's where a good friend of mine with National Opt-Out Day, Parents, you can opt out of your standardized tests by religious reasons. So try any way to apply now to not even take the test, especially if you believe you can fight it right. Because we need to stand up to this teaching to the test method, because it's hurting special needs kids, it's hurt everyone in education. And I'm really embarrassed to be an educator in this country right now because of that. So that's just my little thing. So let's continue with. So what an advocate does is, like you said, look at that child. And a lot of times you look at the IEP and you say, well, I want my son to become better at math. I don't want it just to be completely adapted. I want him to be doing what the rest of the students are doing. And sometimes they'll say, well, his grade's fine. He's doing fine. He's not capable of doing more. Well, why can't we make some changes? Why is that?
I think at this point, like you said, they're teaching to a certain standard, they're teaching to a certain level, they're teaching to those tests. And when you have a child, I mean, we're very lucky that we have a child that is so high functioning. We have the same expectations of our son that we have of our other two children. We want him to do well in school. We want him to get good grades. Right. We want him to go to college. And we feel, by what we have seen at home, by doing alternate things than just having him sit at a desk, he is more than capable of reaching those goals, if just explained to him in a different way, if shown to him in a different way. So that's usually our question. Yes, the basic is not good enough for us. What can we do to make him better? And you have the right to ask for that. And you have the right to get those things in place for your child. So it's just basically at that point takes the parent opening up their mouth and requesting it and having that valuable advocate back up to reinforce that.
See, a lot of times if you don't request it, it never happens.
Absolutely.
They're willing to do, if they knew that math was an important thing. I was in a meeting 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. Well, we never heard from you. Well, we never heard from you. Yeah. So it's like always they put it on the parent and, and the advocate. You were supposed to email me every week. Well, you never gave me the feedback. You're at school. So that's where it becomes the fight. And I understand, teachers, you're working tremendous amount of hours. You are working very hard, which you do. You don't have the resources. It's not your problem. It's our politicians' problem. And it's our school board's problem, and it's our superintendent's problem that they're choosing the one thing to cut in education, is special education, and then the arts and sciences. They're forgetting about it, making it all that matters is math and reading. Nothing else matters, and we're going to lose our kids in the 21st century. We truly are.
And I think teachers are starting to realize that as well. We have been blessed with some amazing teachers that have been placed in Sean's room, especially the teacher that she has this year. And it's funny because when we've been in IEP meetings, the special ed teacher, the principal, and the special education director will be like, oh, he's doing fine, he's doing this. And then all of a sudden you'll see her in the background just shaking her head. Like, no.
And that's good that these teachers at least are speaking out, but in other districts they'd be afraid.
Yeah. And I'm sure,
and it would be a very difficult situation.
Absolutely. I mean, the teachers are required to toe the line, and they would love to do more with your child. They would love to speak more with you. They would love to try all of these things. But the bigger classroom sizes, like you mentioned previously, and then their hands are also tied from higher up within the administration. It makes it very impossible to do that. So I don't think I have ever faulted a teacher in any of the problems we've had.
Right, and that's where I want to go to our politicians right now and say this is the biggest education crisis. Just because if you're a Republican, a Democrat, conservative, a liberal, in the center and independent, it doesn't matter. You need to go and observe your district school. You need to sit in a school board meeting and hear what they're talking about. And then when it comes time to the next election, you need to vote. You need to vote for education. When we get back, we're going to talk more about this, and we're going to go into some of the fundraisers that Jen has, and then we're going to talk a little bit of a Q&A before we finish. We'll be back in just a moment. Well, as you see now, I'm kind of controversial in certain topics if you just tuned in. But I want you to go to my website, totaltutor.net, and you contact me. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, with questions. I mean, because really, we are in a dark time when it comes to children with special needs being serviced correctly. But what Jen's trying to do is for families that really don't have resources to get the opportunity for advocacy, to have the opportunity for service dogs. She's teaming up as the director of fundraising for the Autism Center of Pittsburgh, and you have some upcoming events and also ways that our viewers can get involved to help out.
Absolutely. And you can go actually onto our website, which is www.autismcenterofpittsburgh.com. If you have advocacy problems like Neil and I have been talking about, you'll be able to phone in or to email and call and help you. We have two wonderful women, Becca Major and Kristen Gallagher, who answer the phones and take those calls and refer you to people like Neil, who will definitely help you. And if they can't refer you to somebody, they'll come out and do it themselves. The wonderful thing about the Autism Center of Pittsburgh is it is completely staffed by mothers of children with autism, people who have been in your shoes, people who have been there and know the laws and know who to put you in touch with. And that's with advocacy, that's with insurance appeals. If your child's care is getting denied, they can help you take it to level 2 and level 3 appeals and get the services that your child needs. The thing is, though, we are run 100% on donations. There are no grants at this time that come in. There is no angel fundraising. There's no money falling out of the sky. It is run 100% on donations. And as it happens, April is Autism Awareness Month. We encourage you to go to that website for the Autism Center of Pittsburgh.com. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there is a button you can push to donate. We will also be having a softball tournament May 19th that is in conjunction with Jamie's Dream Team, another wonderful local nonprofit in the area. And we're going to have at least 20 teams to sign up. We're going to have bounce houses, face painting, food, beverages, lots of games. Winning team gets a big old trophy, everything. And we will also be soliciting things through Dove Chocolate Discoveries as all month for Autism Center of Pittsburgh. So watch for that on our website. And also we are teaming up with a couple other jewelry places and to sell some things, and those will be up as well. And I would like to show this bracelet right here is available through our store on the website. This is the easiest and probably least expensive way to show your awareness. This shows that you support autism awareness. This is $3 on our website. Very easy, quick way to do this. You can wear this the entire month of April. Your local organizations are the ones on the ground that help you. Your local organizations are the ones that help you with your insurance appeals, that help you find those doctors, that help you get to those psychological evaluations and diagnosis. So before anything else, I encourage you to support your local organizations first.
And I think that's so important. And let's go to the softball tournament. So who's involved in the softball tournament? What are you?
The Autism Center of Pittsburgh, we are co-sponsoring that with a wonderful organization out of White Oak called Jamie's Dream Team. They sort of operate along the lines of Make-A-Wish. They find terminally ill children or people with disabilities or people through a hard time that need help, that make their wish come true. This past weekend, they have a little girl that was dying of cancer that just wanted a princess party. And they brought in the most beautiful thing. They brought in all the princesses for her, huge ballroom, huge cake, huge dance. I mean, this little girl sadly does not have much longer on this earth, but she's going to remember that special day when they made her feel like a princess. So we are teaming up together. And we are taking registrations right now for teams to play. Basically, big old softball team. It starts at 8 in the morning. It's going to end probably about 8 at night. Lots of games, lots of food, lots of prizes. We're going to have a silent auction. We're going to have 50-50. All of that money is going to be evenly split between Jamie's Dream Team and the Autism Center of Pittsburgh. And that's going to go on their side to making more dreams come true for people who need them. And also to get more advocacies on our side and more resources to help our families.
I think that's tremendous, and I hope that our families out there will definitely go to the softball event, maybe even participate in it, and check out all the fun things that are involved in it. And I think that also, Jen, you're looking at other events as well coming up later on I think that what we need to do is bring more awareness and Q&As, opportunities for you to do Q&A or myself to do Q&A, to really speak out about all these different things. I think the passion that's involved is what you've gone through as a parent. And you don't want to see this happen to tons of other parents, do you?
And I think that is why I decided to join forces with the Autism Center of Pittsburgh and work with them. All of these, like I mentioned, the staff is moms of kids with autism. We have all had our personal battles, whether it be with schools, whether it be with insurances, whether it be with just other people not understanding. Basically, you could go into a mall, your child's acting up, you know it's a sensory issue. Meanwhile, somebody else in that area is looking at you like you're a bad parent and you don't know how to raise your child. So to bring that awareness out that it just may not be a behavioral problem, your kid just may not be out of control, this is actually a diagnosed disability, to bring that awareness out, to bring that funding out to help other families. I think just on this local level and to serve our families in the Pittsburgh area, I think is very vital.
Well, I'm going to be the Q&A right now for Jen before we run out of time. You'll see how quickly this will fly by, the fastest 10 or 9 minutes in television. But I'm going to ask questions that if I was a parent, would ask Jen. Is it any time a bad time to go ahead and question the district? Should you kind of do research before doing it, or do you recommend always speaking out? Just find out if your rights are met. Do you think that they need to take as many questions as possible? Do you think they need to be called on the carpet as much as possible? That kind of thing. Or do you think it's more to research first before doing? What is your recommendation?
I think a little bit of both, actually. If you're in a meeting and they suggest something and it just doesn't feel right, obviously in that situation, you're not going to have time to do research. So if it doesn't feel right, question it. This is your child. This is your child's education, of course. Until you feel satisfied, absolutely keep them in there. Yeah, they may have another meeting in a half an hour and they're trying to rush you out the door. But if you don't feel right, you have every right to fight for your child. If it is a bigger issue and you still don't feel right after that meeting, absolutely do your research and come back. This is, as you said before, our schools provide a service. They educate our children. They are the people that help turn our children into productive members of society. If you don't feel that your child is getting the right care, why take it?
Why take it? And it's better to fight now than fight later.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Because just think it, when your child's younger, it's better. Because when you get them into the high schools, trust me, it's another battle. Because again, the excuses. And they're like, well, they're going to be gone soon. And I, when I talk about this, I'm not trying to be upset against districts. I wish that everyone together as a team, especially in every school board, will say, we don't want to see these parenting groups attacking our district. Because it happens everywhere. It happens in my area. It happens in the city. It happens in the north, the south, the east, the west of Pittsburgh, and all over the world, and especially in the United States. Why can't we figure out this issue? And that's the biggest problem. How can we make sure that our kids are serviced more? And that means talking to politicians. And I'm sure also you're on the ground talking to politicians as well, trying to tell them this, we're not going to take it anymore.
Absolutely. We are definitely trying to talk to politicians, and we've made a little bit of headway. We are starting to get responses now, and hopefully those responses turn into meetings. And I think it also has to be a partnership between all three. The politicians have to let the school districts know it's okay. These are within their right. If it's something that is an absolute right, don't fight it.
Right.
Because it's going to cost you more money in the long run to fight these people, to go to due process, and to do all of this other stuff than it is just to give them the service in the first place. And I think the schools need to stop taking it so personally. Right. Is basically what it is.
They take it personally. The teachers take it personally. I was sitting in a meeting where the teacher was literally arguing with the parent. Let's figure out conflict resolution, please, teachers. Let's train teachers in conflict resolution. You maybe have just imagine if you're a teacher and you're a parent, then you take the side of the parent. What would you be doing with your child right now? You would be fighting tooth and nail. So as the teacher, you have to understand it's their child, it's their situation. But that's the thing. You're like you said, the personalized, taking it personally. I'm upset you did this.
Right.
So a lot of times, I think the more resources you have, the more your point A, point B, point Z, the more they're going to just say, let's get them out of here. Let's do what they need to do. Because if they know you're going to go here, 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 We don't want that hassle.
Yeah, I believe parents, all parents, not even parents, just parents with special needs, but any parent, you really need to educate yourself on your rights and know that you have the right to go into that school and observe, or to call a meeting at any time, or to just ask for extra things for your children. If it's the same thing if your child is being bullied, if your child is having problems in a certain class.
One thing I would
yeah,
like
that's
to
probably a whole wealth of topics for another show.
Exactly.
But if your child's having trouble in math and needs to either move out of that class or move into another class, know your rights. Why have your child struggle? Why have your child fall behind when you can go in there and yes, the math teacher may take it personally and get upset, but you're not there to please her. You're there to help your child. And I think if both sides stop taking it so personally and just work together for the betterment of all of these students, there wouldn't be so much conflict.
The conflict, please. So first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask one more question after that, but I want a call to action in a way of just saying, I want you, if you're really fed up what's happening in your school district, to contact your local politicians and tell them, by the way, we expect certain things. And we don't have those, forget about it. So again, where can we find more information on you and learn more about you, Jen?
You can go to our website. It's www.autismcenterofpittsburgh.com. We will have our events going up on the website very shortly for April, which is Autism Awareness Month. And remember that if you are going to make a donation for autism awareness, to donate locally, because we are the people on the ground that will help you the most and help you the most immediately with any of these issues that we discussed today.
And for my website, totaltutor.net, Thursdays, 3 o'clock, 1080 WWNL. I interview a lot of interesting celebrities. I'll have Randall Cunningham on the show in a couple weeks. And then WRCT, some really interesting debates always go on there. And that totaltutor.net, Total Education Network, every day, different education talk, Q&A, spotlight show, all these interesting education topics, and my celebrity show. So go check all those things out, and we'll talk next month on TV, and I'm looking forward to it. And Jen, I heard we'll have probably another really interesting guest, and I think my co-host Jared will show up. So take care, and we'll see you next month. Good day.
Watch BPTV.
And now, another adventure with Savings Man.
Oh dear, I can't afford that.
Charge it. You can pay it off later.
Not so fast, credit card guy.
Savings Man.
Don't let him entice you, ma'am. Credit card guy can lead you to big trouble. You need a savings plan.
You're right, savings man.
Get this ballpark estimate worksheet at choosetosave.org. It will help you get started.
Gee, thanks, savings man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org and get your ballpark estimate today.
This is not a race. On the road to financial independence, the winners are the ones who stay the course. Learn more about securing your financial future and choose to save. It will pay off in the long run.